The latest news out of Bizarro World comes from the NFL this past weekend in the fact that Shedeur Sanders wasn't taken in the first round. So, of course, the race hustlers of America, who know absolutely zero about football, have gone to the internet to cry racism. Because, of course, they would.
The collusion right now by the NFL to not draft Shedeur Sanders is the same collusion you saw to not allow Colin Kaepernick to sign with an NFL team. Because guess what? When the good old boys are left to their own devices, they're going to hold a grudge. Regardless of how good Shedeur is, and make no mistake, some people had him high as the 6th player on the draft board.
Shedeur Sanders falling into the 4th round is insane. How? Some of these quarterbacks that have been taken before Shedeur Sanders is...
I have to be honest. This Shedeur Sanders conversation is pissing me off, like badly, because it's such a good example of how little people actually understand white supremacy and racism, and yet somehow everyone thinks that they are experts in white supremacy. What I've seen a lot in relation to Shedeur is this idea of, well, he's so egotistical, we got to humble him. Well, that's interesting, because I don't see the same narrative, about white quarterbacks. I've seen that actually be something that's a positive, right? Oh, they have edge to them. We want our quarterbacks to have edge. So there's that. But largely, again, the idea of needing to humble or break down a black person is racist. It's racist, right? The idea that you want to dilute an unapologetic young black man who has bravado, who again has deep confidence, sometimes maybe erring on arrogance, but that you feel like you need to humble, and not just humble, but now humiliate him, a top 10 Heisman candidate. It's white supremacy, right? You have a bunch of team owners, right? Largely white men, colluding to break down a young black man. Oh yeah, no. We're gonna teach this boy a lesson. That is racism. That is absolutely racism. And then when people bringing up things like, oh, well, other black quarterbacks have been drafted, other black players have been drafted. Yes, it's a largely black league that is also a racist league, right? Did Colin Kaepernick not happen?
Let's be honest here. I think it's funny that every time things don't go the way the left think it should, it's because of white supremacy and racism. There couldn't possibly be another reason. Let's look at the stats from the first round of the NFL draft. 25 of the 31 players that were drafted in the first round were black, including 11 of the top 15, and the number 1 pick, Cam Ward, is a black quarterback. As a matter of fact, only 2 of the first 5 quarterbacks taken in the draft were white. So you can't even argue that all the white quarterbacks were being taken ahead of Sanders. It couldn't possibly be that there just wasn't that many teams looking for a starting quarterback out of the draft, or that there could be questions about Sanders' personality or ability, because Sanders had a really good statistical college career. And as we all know, if you're good in college, that means you're going to be great in the NFL. No, it has to be white supremacy and racism. As a matter of fact, the NFL is so racist that the 4 black NFL head coaches also passed on Sanders.
Mike, it was not a shock within the NFL and team buildings when Shedeur Sanders did not go in the first round. I would fairly tell you it is a surprise that he is still on the board at the start of day 3. Philosophically, some teams feel like if you are drafting at the quarterback position specifically, if you think you've got a starter, you take him in round 1. If you're drafting somebody to be your backup, you don't want to do that until day 3. I spoke last night with one general manager who is considering taking Shedeur Sanders today. He pointed back all the way to March 2024 and something that Shedeur's father, Deion Sanders, said on a podcast talking about both Shedeur and Travis Hunter, saying that if they are drafted by a team that they don't want to go to, he's going to step in and pull an Eli, meaning force those players to not actually go to that team and try to get them traded. Throughout the pre-draft process, Shedeur Sanders very much proceeded as if he was dictating to clubs where he was going to go rather than how the draft works, which is the other way around. And there were a bunch of opportunities missed at the various checkpoints through that pre-draft process. Go all the way back to All-Star season. Instead of going to the Senior Bowl, he went to the East-West Shrine Bowl in his backyard in Dallas. Despite an NFL memo saying if you go to these All-Star games, you have to practice, Shedeur chose not to. At the Combine, it is now well documented some of his formal interviews did not go well. One assistant coach told me in all his years it was the worst formal interview he'd ever been through. People said that Shedeur was trying to dictate how he wanted things to go and made them feel small. Even at the Pro Day, the entire Big 12 had an event in Dallas. Shedeur was there, but did not work out. He had a showcase instead in Colorado. All of which is to say, for a player who had a variety of questions both about the talent level, how he would fit into an NFL system, how he would adjust from his play style in college, but also about the potential culture shock of, for the first time, playing for someone who is not his father. There were opportunities that Shedeur Sanders could have taken there. He seemed to feel as if he was in an elite category where he could choose the few teams he wanted to go to. Now some of those very same teams that might be considering taking Shedeur today didn't get those opportunities to answer their questions.
What teams want on these visits, and we can debate, whether they should, but what they want is to hear a player that is coachable, that is willing to accept information, that is willing to adapt when they're being asked to adapt. He didn't communicate that on a lot of these visits. Again, we could debate this, but I'm just telling you that that's what these teams got, and that's what Tom is communicating here.
So you hear that. Maybe NFL teams weren't looking for a rookie quarterback to come in and disrupt the program because he believes that he's better than everybody else. There's certain intangibles that NFL coaches are looking for in their quarterback, and it doesn't sound like they found those intangibles in Sanders. The fact that he didn't throw during the Combine isn't uncommon in first-round quarterbacks, but the fact that he refused to practice for any of the senior All-Star games, that's a new one. And when you're looking for a young man to lead your team, that's not the type of personality teams are looking for. Guys that believe they're too good or don't have to practice. There's no argument about whether Sanders is talented. He's extremely talented. But anybody that knows anything about NFL football knows he does not look like he's ready to be a starter in the NFL. And the amount of money that first-round picks get paid is not worth the risk unless you're 100% sold on a player, especially when it can set your team back for years if you pick the wrong player, especially at quarterback. I challenge all race baiters out there to do a little research. Look back on the past 5 years worth of quarterbacks drafted in the first round, then find the ones that failed and how those teams are doing today. Because I promise you that those teams that were wrong about the quarterback in the first round are still trying to recover. Look, maybe Sanders will end up being a top-tier quarterback, and maybe he'll be a flop. I'm not saying I'm not rooting for the guy. I would just not have risked a first-round pick on him. But lucky for Sanders, my opinion doesn't matter. Maybe the best thing to come out of the NFL draft weekend was the prank call on Sanders.
Mickey Loomis here, GM of the Saints.
How you doing?
Good, how are you, man?
Good, been waiting on you.
Go! Yeah, we have. It's been a long wait, man.
No, for sure.
We're going to take you with our next pick right here, man.
Yeah. Yes, sir, let's be legendary.
Yeah, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, man.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Ready to go! What does that mean?
Hey, is this Shedeur? Hey, this is Mickey Loomis here, the GM of the New Orleans Saints. How you doing? This is Mickey Loomis here, GM of the Saints.
How you doing?
Good, how are you, man?
Good, been waiting on you.
Yeah, we have. It's been a long wait, man. We're going to take you with our next pick right here, man.
Let's be legendary.
Hey, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, man. Sorry about that.
Oh my God! He bought it!
Oh.
Now, if you made it to the end of this video, I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think Shedeur Sanders should have been a first-round pick and that he's ready to start in the NFL right now? Or do you think he's a backup that needs time to learn? Please leave a comment down below, like and subscribe on your way out, and I'll catch you guys next time.